Good afternoon, Year 12. It's Mrs. Sheehan here, and I would be normally taking your Year 12 resit of English language today. As you're at home, we'll be doing it remotely, so this is your virtual lesson. Last week, if you found the work that was emailed out on Go, you should have completed question 1 and question 2, which you will hopefully remember for language paper 2, which we are looking at, are the easier questions. So we're going to start looking at question 3 today. Question 3 will ask you to analyse the writer's use of language, so words and phrases, and to look carefully at which source the question focuses on. So, you should make sure you read the question and then underline any quotations that could help you answer it. Look at your chosen quotation in more detail, and consider what language features have been used. Ideally, you want to go for 3 to 4 paragraphs with plenty of quotations and lots of close-in analysis. So where you zoom into those words, talk about the reasons that they've been used and the effects that they give to the readers. So some of the key terms you might want to use for question 3, you can see below. Lots of those should be really familiar to you. Some of them are a little bit more abstract, and you may struggle to come up with their definitions. So on this slide here, I go through some of them. So pathetic fallacy. That's a literary device where the author attributes human emotions and traits to nature or an inanimate object. So it could be there's an angry man and he's in a thunderstorm, so the anger is replicated in the thunderstorm, or there's a happy scene and it's sunny. Onomatopoeia is where the word sounds like the sound it makes, so crash, zip or bang. Personification is where we give a personal nature to a personal nature or human characteristics to something that non-human, or the representation of an abstract quality in the human form. So you might see something like the ropes beat and lashed at the fishing boat, terrorizing the men on board. So the thing that is being personified here, so given the personal nature or human characteristic, is the rope. And the characteristics it's been given are where it says about it beating and lashing and terrorizing. So we know ropes in themselves can't actually do those things, so beat something, lash it, or terrorize anybody. But if you were a human, you could. So it gives the connotation that these ropes are aggressive. And as I've just said, connotations is an idea or feeling which a word invokes for you as a reader or a person. So we've got the example of the word fiercely has connotations of what? What would you say fiercely has connotations of? So I would say fierce has connotations of violence, maybe anger, unpredictability. It could be that it has connotations of an animal, such as a lion, or a big brown grizzly bear. And that would then appeal to the reader's emotions because it would maybe demonstrate somebody's a character's actions, or enable the reader to create a more vivid image of what is happening in the story or the piece of writing at the time. So question 3 might look something like this green box. So refer to source A. So it's important to remember you're only looking at source A. Now, looking back to the rail disaster booklet that we started looking at earlier, last week, the question goes as follows. How does Charles Dickens use language to convey his thoughts and feelings about the rail disaster? It's worth 12 marks, and I put in the star above 18 minutes. So you should be aiming to answer this question in 18 to 20 minutes probably. As a reminder, some of the key techniques and vocab you would want to use are below. So they are the things you're looking for within the text. So what I would recommend is that you read through source A, and hopefully you'll be able to find these quotes here. So if you can underline the quotes or just note them down as you find them. And now I want you to identify the highlighted techniques that are used in these quotes. So tell me what tell would be, little shaken, my good fellow for God's sake, etc. Okay. So you probably want to pause the video to do that. So once you've found the quotes, label what each Label each of the highlighted words with what technique they are. Okay, so let's have a look at tell and give. So what could we categorize tell and give as? So they are instructing somebody to do something. Tell me whether you know me, and give me your key. So you might call these a command language, or an instruction, or a demand. So that's the language technique that the writer has used there, and he's done that to show maybe the urgency in the situation and in Dickens's feelings of the time when this accident happened. So he felt that he was in an urgent, crucial situation, so he wasn't really considering about being polite and using niceties. He just wants to get his point across. Tell me whether you know me. Give me your key. So I'm hoping you've done the same for all of the other highlighted words. After you've done that, I would then like you to try and answer question 3. Try and put it into your 3 to 4 paragraphs. Some of the quotes that you will use for your points could be from here, and that should take around 20 minutes. So I pause the video, have a go at answering this question, and then come back. Now hopefully you finished question 3, and we're going to have a quick look at question 4. So question 4 will take a bit longer, 25 minutes. Just as a reminder, the questions escalate throughout the paper in their difficulty. So expect that each question that you come to will be slightly harder than the one previously. Question 4 wants you to compare the attitudes and the perspectives that are conveyed in the 2 texts. Now this one's worth a bit more, 16 marks. You're going to need to read the question and underline any quotations that could help you. Now we know that the question 4 assesses both of the sources, so source A and source B, because you're having to compare between the 2. You'll need to identify what the writer's attitudes and viewpoints were, and then clearly talk about them. And you need to be able to say how they've shown these attitudes, so through the use of the words, maybe the phrases, or the various techniques that they've used. This one I would aim to write about 4 to 5 paragraphs. If you need to, you can make notes under each of the headings. You might want to put question 4 and then maybe note down those points of how should I do it. So this is what question 4 will look like. So refer to source A and source B. In your answer you should compare their different perspectives, compare the methods that they use to convey their attitudes, and support your ideas with quotations from both of the texts. But before you have a go at that, let's just do a little bit of work on question 4. So here you can see some perspectives and attitudes or ideas that are conveyed in both source A and source B. So source A is a survivor of the accident, which we know is Charles Dickens, and source B is a journalist's report on a parent's experience of an accident that they lost their daughter in at the Paddington rail crash. So the perspective for source A is that Dickens feels the guards dealt with it badly, and he's very critical of their handling of the disaster. And then underneath we have various attitudes that Dickens conveys through his letter to his friend. So he talks about the crash being chaotic, that he needed to take control, that's how he felt. He was helping the injured, he saw lots of traumatic things, he was left shaken, and he wanted nothing to do with the inquest afterwards. Whereas source B's perspective is slightly different. It explores the trauma of witnesses and their families. So this writer wasn't there, it was a journalist reporting on other people's experiences. So the attitude of the journalists include memories that he conveys from the victims and the witnesses of the day, and that they're difficult to discuss and explore. That memories for these people are still very vivid, very much they can evoke images in their heads as they discuss what happened. It was categorised as Britain's worst ever rail disaster. There's evidence the accident absolutely could have been prevented, and that these witnesses and the relatives of the dead are permanently traumatised by the accident and therefore find rail travel now a very traumatic experience and not something that they like to do, if do at all. So you need to have a look through source A and source B and find a quote that demonstrates the perspective for each source, and then at least 3 of those attitudes. And I would like you to put something along the lines of perspective, and then on the other side of the page put the quote that you find supports that. And likewise for attitudes, and you'll repeat that for source A and source B. So just to give you an idea, if you want to aim for at least a level 3, you need to do the following. So you need to show clear understanding of language and clearly explain the effects of the writer's choices. You need to select the right quotes to support your points and use subject terminology accurately. So source A is written from the perspective of a survivor of the rail accident. Charles Dickens is the form of the former accident, Charles Dickens, in the form of a letter soon after the event. Whereas source B is written by a journalist interviewing the parents of a survivor for a newspaper article 15 years after the accident. In source A, we see that Dickens is quite critical of the aftermath of the crash. He describes the guards as running up and down, ... quite wildly. And this creates a feeling of chaos for the reader, and the noun running creates an image of the guards rushing, unorganised and panicked. It also demonstrates that he doesn't feel the guards have control of the situation. He uses the imperative verb give when telling the guards to give them the key. I'll empty this carriage, he suggests. This suggests he felt that he could manage the situation better than those employed by the rail company at the time, and the image that he wants to take control himself. Now, I'd like you to have a go at answering question 4 here for source B. So I've given you an insight into what you might want to put for source A, but I'd like you to do the same for source B. Okay. And you can use this paragraph for your inspiration. So in contrast, source B explores the trauma of witnesses and their families of the victims. The article describes that those present at the scene have endured memories over the years of mobile phones ringing from the bodies of the dead. We expect a ringing phone to be that of a person who is alive, not dead. Therefore, this statement is shocking, especially as it is in the opening paragraph of the article. I'd like you to continue with that paragraph and then add to it and compare the perspectives and attitudes that you find in source B for this question. Okay, and just a reminder, the sources you're looking at are in this booklet, the Rail Disaster booklet. So this is your source A, this is source B. Okay. And then you've already done 1 and 2, so you're now focusing on question 3 and 4, as we've just discussed. Now, I'll attach the Rail booklet to the email as well, so you should be able to access all the information you need. And I wish you the best of luck. Just as a reminder, your tasks for today are to complete question 3 and have a go at completing an answer for source B, question 4.